I think we can start. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the IMO CARES event. It's the Maritime Technology Global Challenge launch. And I'm Petra Ahari. I'm the project officer of the IMO CARES, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. The event has three main sessions. First, we will find out what is IMO CARES and what is the Global Challenge. Then we will introduce the Maritime Technology Cooperation Centres, and they will tell us what they see the regional challenges and opportunities in decarbonizations are. And then we will find out about next steps in the challenge and how you can get involved yourselves. We will then conclude with Q&A session, and we expect the webinar to run for approximately an hour. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Please be aware that the webinar is being recorded and it will be available on the IMO CARES website. If you have any comments or questions, please use the chat box and we will address as many questions as possible within the allocated time. Now, I hope you can enjoy the workshop. And with the introduction completed, I'll invite Mr. Jos Matthijkel, the head of DPP, to provide brief welcome remarks. Over to you, Jos.
Thank you, Petra. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. A very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, and depending on where you're coming right at this moment. My name is Jos Matthijkel, the director of the recently established Department of Partnerships and Projects at IMO. So let me welcome all of you to the launch of this innovative initiative titled the Maritime Technology Global Challenge under the IMO CARES project, which is funded by the Transport General Authority of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. CARES stands for Coordinated Actions, Reduction of Emission from Shipping. And that says a lot about it, what CARES is all about. This exciting challenge is expected to support bridging the technology gap between the global north and the global south by enabling the demonstration of market-ready technology solutions for ports and shipping, and in particular domestic vessels in developing countries. This initiative will be in line with the revised IMO GHG reduction strategy, which was recently adopted by IMO member states just a few weeks ago. I'm sure many of you heard about it. And this marks a historic milestone in our move towards decarbonization of the maritime sector. And key to the strategy is ensuring no country is left behind. So this global challenge, first of its kind, we are organizing, is being made possible by the generosity of the project donor, the Transport General Authority of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Once again, thank you all for participating in this event, and also thank our IMO CARES team for coordinating this very interesting event. Thank you very much. Over to you, Petra.
Thank you, Jos, for the welcome. And now let's hear from Anton Rhodes, the IMO CARES project manager, who will give us a brief overview of IMO CARES and will explain some details of the global challenge. Over to you, Anton.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Petra, and thank you for the welcome remarks from Jos. Can you hear me okay, Petra? It's clear? Brilliant, thank you. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all participants. Thank you for joining. The main purpose of this presentation is to provide an introduction to the IMO CARES Global Challenge. So I'll try and answer some of those kind of standout questions. What are the key focus areas? Who are we targeting for engagement in this challenge? What are the actions, timeline? What's the criteria for participating? And very importantly, what is the benefit of participating in the challenge? Before I get into the details of the global challenge, I just want to provide a quick explanation of the IMO CARES project. So CARES is an IMO implemented project funded by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It was launched in April this year. The CARES objective is to accelerate technology demonstration, diffusion, and uptake to help achieve maritime decarbonization in developing countries. The project is part of a broader IMO initiative to decarbonize shipping and to ensure that no country is left behind on this voyage. Next slide, please. To achieve the CARES objective, we've developed a program of activities under CARES focused on 3 key areas. These are networking events, technology reports, and of course, the Global Maritime Technology Challenge. For the networking events, this will be a program designed to directly link technology companies with potential donors and recipient countries. The big outcome for these events, it's all about developing concrete ideas for project concepts, helping to build partnerships, and ultimately helping to mobilize donor funding for technology demonstrations. And in terms of the technology report, the CARES project will produce an annual report looking at the current state of play and potential for the future in terms of technology application in developing regions, especially small island developing states and least developed countries. So the main outcome here is to try and raise awareness and to encourage the uptake of new technologies in these regions. And then, of course, we have the global challenge. Next slide, please. Okay, so in terms of the global challenge, what are the key focus areas? First is that the challenge has been set up to help identify suitable maritime energy efficiency technologies for demonstration. And I want to emphasize that all types of maritime energy efficiency technologies are welcome. Okay, so this could be wind, solar, electric, alternative fuels, or other types of ship or port optimization technologies. We're not specifying any particular technology. It's a blank canvas. The only criteria on the type of technology is that it's market ready and it must align with the competition criteria, which I'll explain a bit later. And also, in terms of where the technology comes from, again, we have no preference. It could be Europe, Asia, Africa, Americas, Pacific. It's not an issue where the technology is sourced from. The second point I'd like to highlight is that CARES is focused on domestic vessels and ports. So here we're talking about smaller vessels, under 5,000 GT, gross tonnage. So for example, this could be inter-island vessels, it could be port vessels, it could be fishing vessels. So we're looking at the smaller class of vessels. And for ports, we're looking at technologies that will optimize the efficiency of portside operations. The third point to highlight is that CARES has been established to support developing countries, especially the small island developing states, least developed countries. So hence the target regions for this global challenge, it's Africa and the Caribbean. So CARES will work with local partners to identify their technology challenges at specific ports on specific vessels in these regions. And then it's these local challenges which will form the basis of the competition. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of the timeline, the first step is the identification of participating countries and the local technology challenges. This process has already started and we're looking to complete this in September. Once this is done, all the competition details will be published online and we'll hold another online event to explain the challenge and answer any questions. More on this later. The second step, so there'll be a 2-month window between October and November for interested companies, organizations, institutions to submit their concept. And step 3, the review of submissions will be undertaken by an expert panel, and this will take place from December with the aim to announce winners in January next year. Next slide, please. Now, for the submission of concepts, I can provide a kind of sneak preview of the types of criteria the expert panel will use to judge the submissions. So these are impact on GHG reduction, impact on vessel ports operational costs. We'll also be looking at the cost of the technology. Is it within the project budget? The cost of installation of technology, is that within project budget? Also, very importantly, how much time does it take to install the technology? How easy, how hard is it? Other criteria include maintenance of the technology after installation. You know, do you need trained personnel to be able to maintain technology? How easy, how hard is this? And also, very importantly, scalability. So how likely is it that the technology can be applied to a much larger number of vessels and ports? So this is just a first outline of the criteria, the type of criteria that we'll be using to judge concepts when submitted. Next slide, please. I want to highlight here who we're targeting in terms of key participants in the global challenge. And really there's two key groups. First, we have local stakeholders in the participating countries. So these are the maritime authorities, port authorities, and ship operators. It's this group that will help identify the local technology challenge to be addressed. And it's this group that will support the process of the technology demonstration. So when we actually apply and then monitor technology in region. The second key group is the technology providers. So it's this group that will provide the solution to the local challenges. The role of IMO CARES and the global challenge is really to help connect these two groups together. Next slide, please. Now, very importantly, you know, and the big question which is floating out there is, you know, why participate? What is the incentive for participating, especially if you're a solution provider thinking of submitting a concept? Well, if your concept is chosen as one of the winning concepts, then you'll receive between $15,000 and $30,000 US, and this will be to pay for development of a full technical proposal. You'll also have the opportunity to work with the International Maritime Organization and also local partners. The chosen technology solution will be promoted globally through the project, so there's massive exposure for the chosen technology. There is the possibility that through demonstration in the selected region, you know, there's the potential to open new markets for the technology. And in terms of the demonstration, we have allocated through our kind of sister project, which is a IMO implemented an EC funded project, the Global MTCC Network project. We've allocated funds between $500,000 and $1 million US for the demonstration in each participating country. Okay, so on the one hand, if you win in terms of the concept submissions, there's funds to develop the technical proposal, and there's also funds for demonstrating that technology in region. Okay, I want to emphasize those 2 points. Next slide, please. So, as I said at the start, this is really the high-level introduction just to what are some of the key points about the CARES challenge. You know, what's the kind of scope, what's the timeline, and what are the benefits of participating in this? So to summarize, global challenges focused on energy efficiency technology solutions for ports and or smaller vessels under 5,000 gross tonnage. The focus regions are Africa and the Caribbean, and it will be 2 participating countries per region. Okay, so 2 countries in the Caribbean, 2 countries in the Africa, where we will demonstrate technology. We're looking at 2 to 4 winning concepts to be chosen by the expert panel. And again, there will be funding for development of a full proposal, and there'll be funding under a separate IMO project for the actual demonstration of the technology in region. And I'll explain a little later in the session, how to get involved in the challenge in terms of, practical next steps. Petra, back to you.
Thank you, Anton, for introducing the challenge, and I know you will give us a bit more details later, but anyone, if at this point you have questions, please put them in the chat box and we will try to respond to all of them at the end in the Q&A session. Before I pass the floor to our colleagues from Africa and Caribbean, allow me to briefly introduce the Global Maritime Network. It's a group of 5 Maritime Technology Cooperation Centres established to support maritime decarbonization. The centres were established under the European Commission-funded GMN project in 2017, implemented by International Maritime Organization, and since this time they have been playing an important role to support countries in their regions. And now joining us today, we have MTCC Africa and MTCC Caribbean to give us a little bit more detail about their regional perspective. So I'll now invite Ms. Lydia Ngugi, head of MTCC Africa, to share her insight on the decarbonization needs and opportunities she sees, in particular in African ports. Over to you, Lydia.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Petra. I will share my slides and continue with this very interesting discussion where we are looking at decarbonization through the innovation and technology. MTCC Africa will focus on the port technologies and what can be brought on board to support the region. Next, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. You'll note that MTCC Africa is very keen in implementing the United Nations Sustainable Goals, much as we are part of the global MTCCs network under GMN, as highlighted by Petra. Above are the sustainable goals that we look into. Key into the ones that are relevant to this subject have been highlighted on the screen, and we look forward to having what Anton has highlighted incorporate into the activities of MTCC in the region, aligned to the United Nations Sustainable Goals. Next slide, please. As we consider the goals of the MTCC Africa, which is to build capacity for climate change mitigation in the shipping and maritime industry, within MTCC, we are keen on the focus of ports. You can see on the screen that we have the representative map of Africa. Much as Africa is an island state, we have 38 ports with a coastline. We also have countries which are landlocked that own vessels. In this sense, MTCC also works very closely with the small island developing states and the least developed states to promote sustainability through port resilience. Next slide, please. How do we do this as MTCC Africa? We have the backbone of the MAPOL Convention, which we can trace it back to the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea. And this MAPOL Convention Annex 6 is also widely supported by the initial IMO GHG strategy, which has been undergoing some revisions. You will note that some of the key performance indicators for MTCC in terms of ports is through the electrification, digitization, use of alternative energy at ports, for example, the use of solar power, bringing on board the green port policies that are currently being implemented in various strategic ports, for example, the Port of Mombasa and the Port of South Africa. And this is all coupled down to capacity building, where we are keen to build the capacity of the region to promote the awareness through the dissemination and result sharing of our pilot projects that will ultimately support with the development and implementation of technical strategies which will improve compliance as well as improve capacity of port operations. Next slide, please. In addition to this, as with all projects, we have had to look at a SWOT analysis within MTCC Africa. Given the presentation will be shared on the online platforms in the next phases in future, I will just give a highlight of some of the strengths that we have within MTCC Africa. And this is to note that with the pilot projects that we have developed and what we are looking into bringing on board through IMO CARES, we are keen to have the evaluation of proposals from the relevant and very active African states who will be availing their initial proposals for consideration in order to support capacity building in the relevant ports, in the initial ports that we shall be looking into, as well as making sure that we build capacity for the entire African region in the participation through learning of the best practices. Next slide, please. Now we look at MTCC Africa at a glance. And at this glance, we shall focus on ports and some of the aspects that we have looked into prior and in future, what we shall be considering. In terms of ports, MTCC Africa is very keen into bringing on board alternative measures for uptake of port energy efficient technologies that will support operations, as well as looking into the green port policies that will bring on board the research and development for infrastructure projects that will bring also the sustainable development through capacity building. This is to mention that much as the ports in Africa are inclined towards incentives, and that is bringing revenue to the state, it is also very important for the ports to be at par with the current developing stages world over. And this is also to note that within MTCC Africa, we have participated in projects like the ones highlighted on the screen, and we are keen to partner with other developing agencies and organizations to support the new organs that we are trying to bring on board, for example, the IMO CARES through the GMN. Next slide, please. As we're looking to support what has been raised, what are the needs and opportunities that will be fruitful in the energy transition through port digitization, which is an example of one of the many factors within energy efficiency leading to decarbonization. You will note that within ports, we have the aspects of shore power, where shore power is alternative fuel support, and this can be done through having aspects that can be brought on board alternatively, for example, as well as having the solar power and electrification of the port buildings and port operations, and also having battery systems that are within the sphere that we are looking into for energy transition through digitization and decarbonization. Given that these are the aspects that have been discussed and coupled with what Anton has highlighted, this forum will give us more insight as to how MTCC can support countries in the region to make sure that no one is left behind, also through having best practices that can be shared within the wider region. Next slide, please. This is the end of my presentation. Feel free to reach out to us on the available links. We shall also be giving more insights on our website in the next coming few weeks as to how we can participate and work together in this mission to making the ports in the African region green. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lydia. And I can now hand over to our colleagues in Caribbean.
Thank you, Petra. Let me know if you can see my screen. Thank you.
Yes,
And you
we
can Yeah, and I assume you hear me loud and clear. So hello everyone, and again, just following up, I highly appreciate this opportunity, especially on this platform, which is facilitated by this project, IMO CARES. And all of us at MTCC Caribbean, including the region, are very excited about this challenge, and especially of our role as MTCC Caribbean, where we bring together the technology provider and the regional maritime stakeholder to facilitate the decarbonization within the regional sector. A little bit on MTCC Caribbean, we are hosted by the University of Trinidad and Tobago's Center for Maritime and Ocean Studies. Certainly, we have successfully emerged as the regional center of excellence in supporting the sustainability in maritime operations while engaged in various IMO projects. As you can see, we came into existence under GMN project, and then we are participating in various other projects, including IMO CARES, GHG Smart, Test Biofouling, and building the continuous capacity in the region. Our key areas of focus of our work at MTCC Caribbean, as you can see, if we look at ports, we are doing the research and development in low carbon technologies, facilitating emission inventories, creating baselines, and helping the regional ports in some infrastructural development, or say providing guidance and capacity building on green energy mix. And when it comes to ships, we have done successfully pilot projects in the previous phase of GMN. We have created baselines. We have looked into the data gaps of the existing data reporting. We have worked into how we can share data with all the stakeholders to enhance, or let's say excel, or fast track the decarbonization within the regional sector. Now, when we are speaking about region and specifically to this technology challenge, we thought it would be nice to share some profiles on the ships which actually operate in the region. And here you can see the profile of ships, which we have divided into two categories. One is less than 400 gross tonnage. And basically, as you understand, this is the category which is not covered under MARPOL Annex 6. And if you look at this, the age is certainly a majority of them are quite above 30 years, or let's say on an average more than 20 years. Majority of these ships are either engaged domestically or they support the port operations. As you can see, the biggest majority is tugs, also offshore activities, and a small category is crew and supply vessels. Fishing vessels also form a considerable percentage of this category. But certainly, maybe for the purpose of project and the taking into consideration the maritime emissions, we would like any technology or any project more aimed at the other category of vessels, which is like tugs or crew supplies or the local domestic vessels instead of fishing vessels. The 46% of these ships, which are less than 400 gross tonnage, is registered within Caribbean. And again, this is something helps us in understanding the sector, and maybe given the MTCC Caribbean's work with the regional maritime administrations, can help in how we can work with this small category of small vessels. Increasing a little bit on this slide, we see the data of ships which are 400 gross tonnage and above, but less than 5,000 gross tonnage. The biggest ship in this category is actually 4990 gross tonnage. In this category, 40% of vessels are registered within Caribbean. And as I was mentioning on the previous slide, the average age is again a concern here, because most of the vessels in this category is also above 30 years. But if we look at the general cargo ships, which is the majority type of vessels, and these are the vessels which are serving the region, their average age is between 11 to 20 years or 11 to 15 years, if we see on the based on the numbers. And this is also some where we think is type of ships which can if any measure is brought on, will impact the emissions very strongly. So and further, any detail of further vessel profiles or or anything needed by any one of you or through the IMO CARES project, we'll be happy as MTCC Caribbean to provide that. And if you think your technology solution can provide any of solution towards any of these categories to increase their environmental sustainability, we'll be happy to further engage, and I'm sure that that is the next step in the project also. So again, summarizing on this slide, there are certainly ocean-going general cargo vessels which are there, which are trading in the hub and spoke mechanism of the Caribbean ports, registered within Caribbean, and age is certainly a factor, but we see that there can be an impact made in reducing emissions from these ships. In the summary, I would say we have worked in the region as MTCC Caribbean for considerable time now. Our work included capacity building activities, pilot projects, and during these pilot projects, we also did an technology needs assessment. And on this slide, we thought it would be nice for us to share with you a few pointers, which is outcome of also our work and technology needs assessment, to see that for any technology provider, that what can help you in increasing the appetite for an uptake of your technology with the regional maritime stakeholders, and especially the ship operators. And you can see here, because given the age factor, certainly a minimal retrofit is something which they are looking at, because again, the vessels are old, and if your system can integrate with the existing systems, it is easier to adapt. And further, the minimal retrofit also aims to, because some of these ships are lifelines of the inter-island trading. So we cannot keep them out of the trade or out of the operations for a longer time. So that would certainly be a criteria for us. As we said, environmental impact is also a main one. All the vessel profiles which we shared so far are using fossil fuels, and majority of them, 99.9, are diesel, operating on diesel. So, and powered by the traditional internal combustion engines. So certainly that is again something which we are looking at, that how to work and how your systems can either integrate with them or assist them on those. These are small ships, so space and efficiency is certainly a key, because again, I mean, a lot of these are private operators. Their directly earnings are linked to the freight they carry, so it should not impact to their cargo or passenger space. So this is again something which we think is key. The power consumption, certainly they are limited in their power generation due to, again, the size limitation. So any system, if it is going to draw down on the power system or power which is generated on board, would certainly not be something which the operators would be very keen to take on. So that is important. Further, reliability and durability is I think is understood, because sometimes weather can be bad, and it can impact the safety of the ship. So I'll just combine it with the next one. We had certain cases where the ships are, due to their age, they have broken down while on their voyage, or they are certainly, especially the ships which are under 400 gross tonnage, they may not be covered under the international conventions, but their local requirements, and certainly any changes or any new fittings must be complying with the requirements, regulatory requirements, what is needed. And most importantly, we would like to take advantage of this pilot projects, because we would look into, if successfully a pilot project is completed successfully, we should be able to, through MTCC Caribbean, scale it up, and increase the uptake within the region. And certainly, as I said, most of these operators are also private, so they also look into if there is some sort of funding arrangement which your technology, as a technology provider, you can have with them. And that would be key, not in pilot project, but certainly when you're scaling up, and how the benefits of technology can help them, or either any sort of a financial arrangement which you can offer to the operators in the region, right? And with that, I would say, we certainly look forward to very exciting submissions, and bring the appropriate and suitable solutions to the regional maritime shipping. And please feel free to reach out to us for any further details if needed. And I would say thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Sujit, for sharing perspective from the Caribbean region. And now I can hand back to Anton, who will tell us what the next steps are and how you can get involved in the challenge. Over to you, Anton.
Great, thanks very much, Petra. And thanks, Sujit, and thanks, Lydia. It was nice to get a bit of a port perspective from the Africa region from Lydia, and very useful, I think, to get a kind of a high level overview of types of vessels operating in the Caribbean and some of the key factors involved with retrofitting and improving those existing vessels in the Caribbean. So big thanks to Lydia and Sujit. So yeah, as Petra mentioned, I'd like to just provide a few practical details now in terms of next steps for the global challenge. So after the summer break, we will launch the IMO CARES website. And at the same time we launch the website, we'll also release on the website all of the technical details of the challenge. So we'll be explaining then, which are the participating countries, which are the participating ports and vessels, what are the technical details in terms of the port infrastructure and the vessels. We'll also provide the practical details of how the concept should be structured, and again, what is the criteria for the concept. So in September, we'll basically provide all of the information necessary so any interested companies, organizations can then start to develop concepts. In early October, and we're targeting 11th of October, we'll hold another online Q&A session. So this will come on the back of all the details of the challenge being released, and it's an opportunity for all interested parties to basically, ask questions and get clarifications on any points about the challenge before they start drafting concepts. So there'll be that Q&A session on 11th of October. The day after that, we'll open basically for submissions of concept. So this can be done through the CARES website. There'll be details of how to submit, and all of that will be done through the CARES website, the interface that we'll set up on there. And then, as I mentioned before, what we're targeting is to announce the winning concepts in January 2024. Just a quick update on the website. Next slide, please. So I just want to mention again, so the CARES website is now under development. It will be launched in September. So this will be the main portal for the global challenge, but we'll also be providing other information about the IMO CARES networking events, updates on the technical report, and it will also provide a lot of useful links to related initiatives and projects focused on maritime decarbonization. Okay, next slide, please. If you have any inquiries, please send an email to aroads@imo.org. And if you'd like a copy of this presentation, this will be put onto an IMO CARES webpage, which can be found on the main IMO website. So until September, when we have our dedicated website, then you can find information on this webpage within the IMO main website. Okay, that's it in terms of the practical information. Petra, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anton, for providing more details about the challenge. If you have any question, now is the time to ask. I saw there was a few questions in the chat box, so we might address them now. Maybe, Anton, the first question could be directed at you. How do we as NGO, this is a question from Ms. Mogo, how do we as NGO get involved in the program?
Yep, Thanks, Petra. So yeah, we're very keen for NGOs to be involved. There's a number of ways NGOs can engage, in terms of wider dissemination. That's a key part of this. It's what happens after the pilot demonstration, which is so important in the regions. We have our MTCCs based in the region, which are going to play a key role to identify the challenges, to liaise with the local stakeholders. But what we're also looking for is to partner with NGOs, with kind of regional focus in Caribbean, Africa, to help with the wider dissemination. And then, of course, depending on what is the focus area for the NGO, there might be other opportunities to collaborate on joint activities under the kind of, the decarbonization focus. We've had events in the past under the GMN project, where we've brought a kind of maritime perspective on decarbonization, and this has been coupled with input from other NGOs focused on other areas like land transport or supporting energy sector. So we're very keen to collaborate, and we'd love to hear from you. So please do send us an email, and maybe we can organize a call just to see where collaboration could take place. Thanks.
Anton, maybe I can direct another question to you. It's a little bit related. What is the criteria for identifying participating countries, and how can countries apply to participate? From Mr. Sumabe.
Thanks. So in terms of participating countries, yeah, there's a number of criteria in terms of what kind of support the country can provide in terms of access to port, access to vessels. We also take into consideration, whether the particular country is progressive on the climate agenda, what kind of policies they have in place to support decarbonization, especially in the maritime area. So these are kind of key criteria, and we rely very much on our MTCCs, which have very strong networks with the different maritime administrations in the regions, to identify the participating countries. But it's based on these kind of key criteria, support that could be made available, and questions of feasibility in terms of being able to deliver the project targets on time as well. So all the kind of practical considerations of what support can be provided, all of that has to be taken into account.
Thank you, Anton. The next question, I think, is perfect for Caribbean. Sujit, can I ask you, Mr. Bergman is asking, would port call optimization be an option?
Thank you, Petra, and thank you for the question. I'm sure certainly it's an option, and as long as, because it's coming through a challenge, so certainly once it fulfills the criteria and clearly shows the impact it can make, certainly it can come through. And if I take the liberty on behalf of my team, I would say, outside of challenge, if you see that it can make an impact, you can still, I would say, participate. And if it doesn't work out there, we can certainly see how it can benefit the region. So we are open to any suggestions there. But yes, it can, if it can, surely.
Thank you, Sujit. Maybe one more question for Anton. Mr. Hall is asking, main focus is on GHG. Will we also deal with black carbon emissions? Or if anyone else wishes to respond.
Yeah, the focus is on GHG. That's the main scope. you know, I'll add as well, just while I have the opportunity, you know, what will be absolutely key, as well as the GHG reduction, is cost reduction, you know, for operation, or, you know, operations of the vessel or operations at the port. We are trying to attract port operators, local ship operators to participate not just in this pilot, but into wider implementation of you know, energy saving technologies, and to be able to attract them and to be able to upscale beyond this 1 or 2 pilot demonstrations is the cost element. Okay, so on the one hand, it's all about GHG, but absolutely key will be being able to display, you know, real cost reduction, so that the local ship operators, port operators are willing to, you know, make the investments and also participate in these kind of initiatives. I just want to emphasize that point as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Anton. We've had a few questions about announcing the website launch, or what is the address of the website. So we have your email addresses, so we will just announce it as we did the launch of this event.
Yeah, we have everyone who's registered for this event, we have your email address, and we'll notify you when the website is launched and provide the link. If you don't want to be contacted, then please just email us to make sure that, you know, we don't contact you unnecessarily. But otherwise, we have your contact details, so we'll be able to give you specific date of when the website will be launched, with all of the information on the challenge.
Thank you, Anton. And one more question, I think it's the last one. I'll just read it. What is the level of development necessary in the project to participate? What documentation is necessary to prepare? And is it possible to participate from companies from other countries than African and Caribbean countries?
Yeah, thanks for raising those questions. There is no specification on where the technology comes from, where it's sourced, where the company is based. It could be Norway, it could be Korea, it could be Kenya, it could be Fiji, it could be anywhere in the world. And I really want to emphasize that point. Where the technology will be demonstrated is Caribbean, is Africa, but where the technology comes from, it might come from within those regions. But if we have a very good solution from another region, then that's perfectly fine as well. So there's no criteria on where the technology or where the technology company comes from. Was there another part to the question? That was it?
I think what documentation is needed as well.
And
what level of detail?
So that will be provided, that information will be provided in September. I gave a sneak preview on the type of criteria, but in addition, you know, what we'll provide in September is details of, for example, you know, the length of the concept, supporting documents for the concept. So all of that information will be released in September.
Thank you, Anton. We have a request for sharing details for MTCC Caribbean and MTCC Africa. I think if I can ask my colleagues from MTCCs to share the details, you have. Thank you. And I think by this we can conclude the Q&A session. Thank you all very much for your questions, and thank you all very, very much for joining us today. And we will be very much looking forward to your active participation in the future, and we will keep you updated. Thank you very much and have a great day.